Hi everyone and welcome. On this week's episode we're heading over to Africa and we're going to start our African Odyssey in Kenya. Kenya stretches for an area of over 500,000 square kilometres, has a population of over 40 million. Geographically it lies right on the equator there in Eastern Africa and has Uganda to the west, Lake Victoria right in the middle of it, and of course has countries like Tanzania to the south and Somalia and Ethiopia to the north. Why are we there? Well, we're going to go on safari and go and see the Maasai warriors. We're going to stay in a traditional Maasai village and then get them to take us out to see the wildlife, the Big Five, and go on an African safari adventure. In addition to that, we're going to see the capital Nairobi and find out more about the history of Kenya and its people, including Mount Kenya itself and of course Mount Kilimanjaro. As we do that, let's get our train tickets, our plane tickets and all the other forms of transport you're going to need to get around Africa ready and then get on board our plane. It's time for Jason's Journeys, everyone. I'm Jason Ross. Let's go to Kenya. We start our African adventure in Nairobi, the capital and largest city of Kenya. The name Nairobi comes from the Maasai phrase Enkari Nairobi, which means cold water, which is the Maasai name for the Nairobi River. However, it's popularly known as the Green City in the Sun and is surrounded by several expanding villa suburbs. Nairobi is the most populous city in East Africa with a population of about 3 million people. It's currently the 12th largest city in Africa, including the population of its surrounding suburbs, and was founded by the British in 1899 as a simple rail depot linking Mombasa on the coast to the country of Uganda. Okay, so here we are in Nairobi. We're in the main street, Kenyatta Avenue. Population of about 3.5–4 million. We're here fortunately on a public holiday, so it's a little bit quieter. We have to investigate our safari options and see how we get on. Nairobi is now one of the most prominent cities in Africa, politically and financially. Many businesses are situated here, including the United Nations Environmental Programme and the main headquarters for the UN in Africa. The United Nations office in Nairobi also exists for business and culture, and it has its own stock exchange in the centre of the city, trading over 10 million trades a day. Okay, so some quick information here in Nairobi Park. Kenya is only a fairly recent independent country. It was only granted independence, in fact, in 1963 from the British. We foreigners here are called Mazungas, and we stand out, shall we say, amongst the locals. The other thing I should point out is that Kenya, the name, actually comes from the name Kenyatta, which was the local name for the tallest mountain, Mount Kenya as we call it. Kenyatta got shortened to Kenya, thus we call it that today. Aren't you glad you know that? Nairobi was essentially an uninhabited swamp until a supply depot of the Ugandan railway system was built in 1899. The city was named, as I mentioned earlier, Enkari Nairobi, meaning place of cool waters, and was completely rebuilt in the early 1900s after an outbreak of plague and burning of the original town to the ground. The location of Nairobi was chosen due to its central position between Mombasa on the coast and Kampala, the capital of Uganda. The Kibera slum in Nairobi was a real eye-opener to visit. It's thought to be one of the largest slums in all of Africa. Most of the residents live in extreme poverty, earning less than $1 a day. Unemployment rates are 80%, and people living with HIV in the slum are many, as well as obviously progressive AIDS cases. Cases of assault and rape are common. There are very few schools, most cannot afford an education, and clean water is very rare indeed. Diseases are very common, and the average life expectancy is 45 years. Throughout the 1990s, Nairobi, the city, has struggled with rising crime, which is why it's got the nickname of Nai Robbery. Believe me, when I was there, 3 groups of people I were with were robbed, and once the sun goes down, people start coming at you with machetes screaming Mazunga. It is a very unsafe city, I have to be honest with you. It was stated in 2001 that nearly 1/3 of all Nairobi residents had experienced some form of robbery. In October 2011, a local Kenyan man with Islamic links set off a gigantic grenade attack which increased the security presence in Kibera. Fears spread of retaliations from groups of rebels over Kenya's involvement in a coordinated operation in Somalia. There have been at present a spate of blasts in Nairobi which started on March of 2012, with grenades being thrown at bus stations and blue-collar bars in Nairobi, killing more than 50 Kenyans. While I was there, an explosion went off nearby, killing 50 people. When you're actually there in Africa, where we know life is cheap, and you actually see life being extinguished in front of you, it's really a gripping and personally moving experience. So when you go to Kenya, just remember you're in Africa and safety is always a concern. While I was in Kenya, I tried some of the local food, starting out with ugali, which looks a bit kind of like mashed potato. It's a dish made from maize flour combined with cooking hot water and making it into a porridge or dough-like consistency. It's beautiful and a simple starch meal that'll keep you going throughout the day. Next on our list we have sukuma. Sukuma is sort of like, I don't know, a cabbage style plant, I guess. Sukuma comes from a Swahili phrase meaning push the week. It's a simple dish and the idea is that it's typically eaten to help you get through the week and get through your work that you need to do. It works, let me tell you. Of course, no meal is complete without the famous Nyama Choma, which is a grilled meat, usually goat, and cooked slowly over an open fire. To say it's delicious is an understatement, and it's normally eaten with ugali or our last meal, kachumbari. Kachumbari is basically an onion and tomato style salad. And let me tell you, once you combine your Nyama Choma, your ugali, your kachumbari, and put it all together in a meal, I tell you what, that with sukuma is absolutely delicious and I enjoyed it thoroughly. Whatever you do, don't go away, because coming up after the break, we go and meet a Maasai warrior and go and see his local village with the townspeople. It's a real experience. From there, he takes us out into the Serengeti and the wild plains of Africa where we go on safari. Make sure you don't miss it. I'll see you after the break, everyone.